Hey everybody. So your collective message for today comes from the Mirror Visions deck, and it's the Ten of Wands. It's holographic. This is the Ten of Embers, this is a tarot deck and it's an oracle deck combined in a like a image shifting deck. So this is the Ten of Wands, which is what you pulled, but it also shifts into the Ten of Embers, which is the oracle version. So we're going to look at the Ten of Wands, though. So this is a different Ten of Wands normally. You see the wands are like the trees, they're all wrapped in vines and flowers. So it's just a really beautiful image that you see. Very shiny, too. So, tens. Let's look at the number first. Tens are about endings and renewals. Then we look at wands. Wands are the fire. They could represent the fire signs. I'm a Leo, but I'm not the only fire sign out there. But also, they can represent creativity. They can represent, career, creativity, especially intuition. I've got to add intuition. It's not often added, but it was something that I was taught, and I really do feel it with these wands. It does seem to show up in there, and I have to agree with it. But with the Ten of Wands, normally what the Ten of Wands is, and there is, if you haven't seen this, let me get this. There is a person in here. You can see kind of like, where did it go? There's a leg, and then there should be a face or something coming out. There's a face and a leg. Someone's kind of walking through this forest, But they aren't they're carrying, well, actually, they are carrying a few wands on their back. They do have these wands on their back. It's hard to tell because they're walking through the forest holding it. So it's just really pretty with all the flowers and vines. It's hard to tell because it's kind of a dark card when you see it. So in the original Rider-Waite-Smith, the original card has a person on it that is carrying some heavy wands on their back, and we see them trying to walk forward. Actually, they're not carrying them on their back. Sorry, I've seen it in way too many cards now. But they're actually carrying the bundle in front of them, but it's covering their face. And it's like, okay, well, they're not blindfolded, but how can they see? They can barely see through it. So it's like, how can they see where they're going with this weight that they're holding on to? And it seems like it's a heavy burden. And they could easily trip and fall and just drop everything. They could get hurt. They're blind. They don't know where they're going because they're carrying such a heavy burden. Sorry, my allergies are going crazy today. I don't know why. The wind is up big time out there. But yes, they're carrying these wands. So with the Ten of Wands, the first word that popped into my head when I pulled this card, trauma. And trauma can come in many different forms. We've all experienced it. And even if we don't think we have, when we typically think of trauma, we think of trauma as being something terrible. Trauma for me, could be a car accident, or, I had a car accident. It was when I lost my first cat, having to put her down when she was very sick and dying of a type of cancer in her lungs. It was traumatic because she kind of died instantly, and a little too instantly for me, and it was traumatic for me to watch that. Usually they just go to sleep, but she her head hit the, boom, it hit the table. It was like instantaneous death, and that ripped my heart out. It's hard to think about it now. I've had to make peace with it now. But it saddened me a great deal because I loved her so much. But trauma can come in a lot of different ways. I have suffered trauma by being attacked by other people. Being in an abusive relationship. Trauma comes in the form of abuse, of rape. It can come in the form of any kind of harrowing experience, life and death that we go through. It's a lot of things. But I also, when I was in therapy, I learned that trauma was, I did not realize this was trauma, or it could even be considered possible PTSD, although I don't think it counted for me because I didn't take the experience that way. And maybe it's because of who I am, but other people did take it that way. Here I live in Oklahoma, and we had a large EF5 tornado many years ago that came right up the street from me. And the house is still standing that I grew up in and that I am currently back in for the time being. And it's still here. Still with damage, of course, like inner damage, like, re-brick, re-roof, but, some things you can't fix. But the things I saw that day, everything seemed to be normal when we came back. But when you walk down to the end of the street, we were blown away because you look down, you look over here and the houses are fine on our street, but you look down this street and they're obliterated down there. There was nothing left. They were gone. And then we walked down to the edge of the neighborhood and you looked, there was nothing. It took the grass right out of the ground. There were dead fish and geese everywhere, and like only the turtles survived in the pond there. And the church that was sitting there, gone. Nothing but a foundation left. The medical office crushed, like somebody had stepped on it with a giant foot, completely gone. And, these little, they were on the cheaper side, these apartments, they only had their walls standing still. The windows and the roofs had been sucked out and sucked off, like gone. There was a car on top of one of them, but I was literally able to walk up to where the hole was, where the window had been, and I was looking at a crib that belonged to a baby. And I was just so relieved that there was not a child in it. And I share these experiences with you because, my therapist had informed me at the time that was trauma. And I was like, really? For me, it was kind of a form of, it was wild. It was kind of shock, but it was also excitement for me. But, not in a, I'm glad it happened, but more of a, wow, I can't believe this happened. I was watching the weather and I knew something bad was going to happen. But that's because I studied the weather. I was studying the weather and I wanted to study the weather. I wanted to be a meteorologist. I wanted to do these things, how life takes us in different directions. I did study it for a while in college. And, I did something with it. I got a bachelor's degree, but not quite in the same thing. But yes, I did. And I experienced, the tornado, and I've watched other tornadoes, and it's just, that's part of how it is. So when we talk about trauma, not to take up most of the time, but we've had it whether we know it or not. And what I want to say about trauma is you're carrying it. And if I want to look back, what comes before the 10 is the 9. The 9 of Wands talks about overcoming that trauma and moving forward with your life, but it's still there. Kind of like throwing the stone, skipping the stone across the lake and it goes under the water. You see the ripples, but then they disappear and the lake is peaceful again. But the stone's still under there. That's your trauma. It's still in here. We still feel it. We still remember it, but it's all in how you end up dealing with it. Seeing a professional can really, really help. Just saying. So it's still there. And so this is saying you're still carrying it with you. And what's next is, after the 10 is the Page of Wands. And that's telling you maybe it's time, curious, to explore that and to learn how to deal with it. How to better deal with your trauma and maybe coping skills. And that can be learned through a counselor or therapist, or, maybe read up on what you can do to handle it. Even a simple Google search, but I always recommend a professional. I can give you advice, but I'm not the professional you need. But if this is something that has bothered you and followed you, it is causing you sleepless nights and, other things, flashbacks or different things, this is something that you need to deal with so that you can lead a normal life, that you can eat and sleep and go about having fun without having that in the back of your mind constantly. And I really do hope that you can get some help and that get some relief, because you're always going to carry it, but hopefully you can carry it a lot lighter. Good luck.